Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tricked Before. This time, Unification 2. Yeah, the conclusion, or Unification II. Either way, it's the conclusion of this very special Spock Sarek episode. It's another one. They're always good. I'm pretty sure we're going to tell you that we dug it. Hopefully you dug it. Hopefully you're going to dig this episode of It's All Been Tricked Before. You have something else you might dig. Get more IABTB. That's it. That's the acronym for It's All Been Tricked Before. Get more of us. Patreon.com/IABD. Very, very, very low cost. Very easy to join. Become part of the club. Yeah, we're elitist. We are elite. You're elite. That's why you're here. Unification 2 on It's All Been Tricked Before.
Welcome out to It's All Been Tricked Before. Your regular hosts are here. This is Steve.
And Keith.
Jimmy Jerome. We're here to talk Unification 2. Or Unification II. As Keith would call it.
Well, I was thinking double I when I saw it.
Double I. Unification double I. Double I. First impressions.
Well,
that's an interesting impression.
Yes. I mean, the first thing that I noticed, because they essentially started where they left off after they gave us a little previously on, was Spock's delivery took a while for me to get used to again. For some reason, it seemed a lot more emotional out of the gate. And it felt like he started settling down as the episode went on. But
that was actually my first impression as well, was I think it threw me enough that it took me a while to be like, okay, this is my Spock. I mean, it's everybody's Spock, but my Spock as well. I had a similar feeling, and then it was like, okay.
So I feel like we've only gotten to see... So Spock's rebirth, death and rebirth, was certainly very impactful on his personality. And I think we got a glimpse of that in Star Trek V, that it was kind of a different
That's
Spock.
a good point.
And we're going to see more of it in Star Trek VI, which I'm pretty sure he filmed just before this, because the movie hasn't been released yet, but it's close. So he's coming off of that, and then he has to add 100 years or 80 years to it. So to me, I'm like, okay, this is the Spock as he would be at this point.
That makes sense.
But, yeah.
it would have been a lot funnier now, of course, if Picard had said, are you talking about something I haven't seen yet? I don't know. What is this mission you're talking about?
Yeah, when they were talking about the Kittimer and all that. That Spock forced Kirk into it and whatever. Yeah, that's Star Trek VI, which I believe we've got 3 more episodes that aired before the movie came out. And then we're going to be reviewing that very, very soon. I hope you'll tune into that episode as well. Probably a longer episode than usual, but it'll be released in place of a weekly, like it'll be in our regular rotation. The whole beginning argument where Spock said, I mean, yeah, Spock is more emotional in his older age. We've seen that before, but the whole thing where he's talking about it's none of your business, and the argument, it's not as venomous as I think his arguments with Sarek would have been, but I like that we get this glimpse of this version of Picard and what's been going on, and that whole moment where Picard gives the bad news in the middle of the argument and Spock takes a second to process Sarek's death is very powerful to me. I mean, not just the walk away, which is a little bit cliche, but the way he then changes his tone and the way he handles it. I don't know, and even his dismissal when Picard's like, he was very proud of you, he loved you, and Spock's like, that's just the disease talking. And Picard's like, no, that's what he really felt. I thought it was a really good impact.
So when Picard says, I have to tell you something, he kind of surmises that he's going to tell him. But
yeah,
should he have sensed before then that Sarek had passed?
Spock?
Yeah.
Were they?
Because I feel like I feel like, and maybe I'm mixing my franchises, my Star Wars and Star Trek franchises. Because in Star Wars with the Force, it's always like, should they have felt, okay, we know millions of voices crying out on Alderaan. Everyone felt that. But even the people with the fewest midichlorians had to feel that. But I can't remember if in the Trek World universe that Vulcans feel that much.
And I know that eventually we see something Sarek, or something of Sarek sensing feelings and emotions and deaths across certain things. I don't know if that's something that they've established in Next Generation,
Gotcha.
or if they had to have melted before or something.
Yeah, and Spock and Sarek, by the end, we learned, chose not to ever melt. So they didn't have that connection.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting. And it makes sense considering their rift and all that stuff. That
it does. I mean, sad, but also...
Yes.
But also, yeah. The Spock and Spock referenced to Picard something about Kirk. Like, oh, I know another captain that was just as stupid or whatever. And I made the comment out loud to you guys. I'm like...
Fan service.
Yeah, there's no good reason for that except, as Keith pointed out, fan service. So...
Yeah, because everyone there knew that he served with Kirk, and Kirk was... Well, in my mind, everyone knows the way Kirk was. Mm-hmm. But, yeah. Which, again,
Maybe they wouldn't. That is interesting.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I think they all know who Kirk was. I think they've established in enough Trek going forward. He's a very famous captain. Everybody stays in the academy. Yeah. But he's been dead for 80 years, so he probably doesn't come up in casual conversation. I mean, there's a lot of...
Right.
FDR's been dead for 80 years. He'll come up occasionally. We all know who he is. But how often, when you're talking, do you talk about FDR?
Well, I didn't work with him, so...
Me.
That's a good point.
Fair. Me more than usual, because I read several FDR biographies. I'm a big fan. But yeah, yes.
But well, I was going to say that it was more the reference he made. They wouldn't necessarily know his personality in that way.
Yeah.
So that kind of circumspect reference it might have...
To be fair, Kirk's been in my life almost 60 years, and I still reference him on a daily basis.
I don't reference him daily.
I do. I'm pretty sure I do. Even when I'm not doing this podcast, I feel like I do.
Spock
Which is something to talk to my therapist about.
Spock says that Picard accuses him of cowboy diplomacy, and he's like, I've been doing that longer than you've been born.
Yeah, what?
Or since before you were born.
I'm... Are there Vulcan cowboys? Are there cowboys on other planets?
He hung out with Kirk. He hung out with Kirk.
That's fair.
He was a big cowboy. He even went to the Old West planet.
Oh, God, that's right.
The OK Corral.
You're right.
Flying cowboys.
Right.
Surely Picard read about that in the Academy.
Speaking of things I'd like to forget, we'll get to that later. Also, as an Eagles fan, sports part of the podcast, I hate the idea of any kind of cowboy anything, let alone cowboy diplomacy. So, but... Although, yeah, I guess we still do have cowboys in America. Or, I mean, we have little cowboys, and we still have that mentality in America, for sure.
We had a cowboy president not too long ago.
This is true.
They, as Keith pointed out as well, they gave away Seela's appearance in the opening credits and the guest starring. That they really shouldn't have. And the picture on the DVD when we pulled it up was Spock holding a phaser rifle on Seela. Mm-hmm. It's like, come on, that could have been a surprise.
Yeah.
And honestly, was there any reason that needed to be Seela, or could it just been random Romulan and they plugged in Seela?
You're probably right, but I think there's supposed to be the shorthand that she would be especially familiar with them and their tactics
and everything.
Yeah, it didn't make sense to me that it was her, and yet at the same time, we've had plenty of opportunity. Like just last week when we were talking about, man, it would have been great if they just plugged Joanne Linville in that role instead of Pardek. And it's like, yeah, it would have been, it's great that they just plugged Seela in there because, yeah, we want to see Seela again. So, unfortunately, I believe that is her last appearance. Am I?
Oh, wow.
Wait, I'm going to look that up because I could be wrong.
You don't want to be surprised at some point later?
I'm not you. No.
I know, but...
Next Gen, I've read about every episode enough that I'm like, I feel like I should know this. This was Seela's last appearance, unfortunately, because I feel like they really did not explore everything they should have explored with her. Mm-hmm. It's not Denise Crosby's last appearance.
That's what I was thinking.
She will be in the show one more time as Lieutenant Tasha Yar, but this was her last appearance. This is her last appearance as Seela. She'll be in the series finale as her last appearance, as it should be.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It should be her last appearance ever.
The series finale? No, I know what you mean. They bring back her and O'Brien for the series finale, and they absolutely should, because they've both been on the show a long time. Spock introduces Datan, the young Romulan, who is played by Vidal Peterson, best known for Deep Space Nine, a single episode. The Thornbirds, Mork and Mindy. He played the Elder in Mork and Mindy 10 years before this, even though he's the young. Yeah, like I say, there's one episode DS9 has a different character.
Yeah, they reversed. They Benjamin Buttoned everyone on Orc. Benjamin Button.
Yeah, he did 3 episodes of Mork and Mindy. So he only has 12 acting credits, and DS9 is his last one as a different character. So he's Not he's still alive, but he's not a big actor that's done a lot of things. But anyway, Spock introduces him and says, "This is Datan," and Picard immediately goes, "Nice to meet you, Datan." And I'm like, whoa, that's in the same shot, in the same scene. And then Parduk says Datan in that scene, and then as they're walking through the caves, calls him Datan. And I'm like, what is his name? It's as bad as like the original series when they just wrote down the name, but it's so glaring when you're introduced to somebody and then you immediately repeat it wrong.
Well, I mean, sometimes there's like some variations of British accents where they reverse the and the for
yeah,
like schedule and schedule, formidable and
so
formidable.
Then they go to the Riker and goes to that bar. That bar that should be in every episode.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it's a redressed Klingon ship set, is what it looked like to me. But man, my alternate episode is I just want her to come take up a permanent residency in 10 Forward.
Yeah, she was awesome.
Her meaning the character's name apparently was Amory or whatever. Played by Harriet C. Leiter, who has just as few IMDb credits as Datan, only 9 credits. And this is her only Trek. She did do an episode Married with Children, an episode of My So-Called Life. She does not have much of an acting career, and I don't know why, because I wanted more of her.
I loved the makeup. I loved the jewelry. It wasn't attractive to me, but it was interesting.
Exactly.
Again, we talk about like, oh, that's a variation on this. That's a variation. It was still humanoid, but it was like
the nose.
Okay, this is very different. Yeah, the nose stuff. I'm like, I can barely look at it, but I can't stop looking at it.
Yeah.
And I liked Riker's flirting with her. I liked the jazz interchange.
Yes.
I agree with you. Yeah, I'm not trying to sleep with her, but I enjoyed her so much. I just wanted so much of everything about her. Well, I wanted more of her.
It took me a little while when she was talking and gesturing, and I was like, why is the piano still playing? I was like, oh yeah, her other two hands. Got it covered, which is great.
Yeah, I don't know who played the other two hands, but yeah, I thought either I want her to be on 10 Forward permanently, or I wanted this to be Quark's bar in Deep Space Nine so that we could keep coming back to it in Deep Space Nine. Like, it wouldn't be that hard to have they stopped at Deep Space Nine. Mm-hmm. That would have been great.
I was going to say that it's not just her; it's the whole environment that worked with it. I think.
Oh, absolutely.
And we needed they're just throwing all kinds of money and things. They're just these new aliens coming in we haven't seen before, along with the Ferengi.
So much budget spent on this bar.
That huge mask and completely humanoid feminine body.
Uh-huh.
And, of course, Billy Bastani as the fat Ferengi.
Hilarious.
Which,
oh, my God.
I don't know that you could do that today.
I was going to say, can we say that?
I don't know.
I think people still can say things like
Billy Bastiani only has 16 IMDb credits, so again, these are three actors. 16's not that many.
Oh, 16. I thought you said 60 or 69. Or like, okay.
So he was in this episode of Star Trek is what he's best known for. He was in an episode of Seinfeld, though.
Oh.
He was in The Understudy as vendor number 2.
Okay.
So he was the understudy to vendor number 1.
There's no other pictures of him on IMDb except the Ferengi picture, so I can't show you what he looks like. But
just like he wanted it. No, there's just so many great things about what he was doing and just how it was coming off. It was
over the top.
They were doing the way that he would make these just barely witticisms and just laugh his head off every time. And then just the napkin thing. It's something small and innocuous enough that doesn't seem like he's making an unreasonable demand, but he's making it unreasonably, and it just really worked differently than you normally have those kinds of characters.
He reminded me of, Keith, you might remember these. David Lee Roth did a couple of videos during his where he had all this makeup and a big fat suit on, and it was the same obnoxious kind of guy, and it was supposed to be grotesque, but it was kind of funny. This guy wasn't grotesque. I mean, he was a Ferengi, but he wasn't grotesque. But it was very similar. The cadence and the charisma's not the right word, but
charisma.
Charisma. The whole effect of just I'm loud and I don't care and I'm having a good time.
The style of the bar and like the big headdress on the woman dressed in black that was with the fat Ferengi reminded me of the beginning of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and the club Willie Scott sings. And I don't know why, because that was a fancy club.
That's a good one.
It was something tone-wise that.
The video that an agent or somebody was talking to him was like, David, you've got charisma.
Oh. All I can think of was when he was a fat Ferengi. I was like, "Hey, have you lost weight? I gained 80 pounds. No kidding. Where are you keeping it all?"
We got to return to the soup stand, but it does not credit anybody on IMDb as Soup Woman. I'm assuming. I think it was the same Soup Woman. It looked like her.
It looked different to me, but
I don't know why you wouldn't just use the same Soup Woman.
You wouldn't want to hire a new one.
it's just another waitress there, just to give them that look. Like
that was very funny.
Here's your stuff.
Here's your soup, buddy.
Yeah, I'm looking through all of the guest stars that didn't have many parts to see if any of them are popular at all.
It looked like a different food, though. Whatever it was some sort of liquid.
So I did look at one of the Fat Ferengi's companions, Shauna O'Brien, and just her first few credits. She has 56 credits. I knew your first few credits: Bare Naked Survivor again, Bear Wench: The Final Chapter, Sexual Indiscretion, Bear Wench Project.
Wow.
Lady Chatterley's Stories.
When I saw her name, I thought, I think she...
Penthouse, Satin and Lace.
Yeah.
My guess is she was a nude model.
Perhaps.
I think I recognize her name.
That whole transport of the pink flowers just seemed super spy crafty, just conspicuous, and I don't know why they wouldn't choose something a lot more plain to...
I mean, that was to brighten their table. He said
it. Still, just yes. Here, have the only pink flower, and then within a 10-mile radius, put right at your table.
I'm gonna have to reference it.
Interestingly, again, I'm looking at all the minor. Debbie David, who played Ensign Russell in this and 50 some other episodes of Next Generation, all listed as uncredited. I guess just one of the minor ensigns.
Okay.
Is listed in 3 episodes of Voyager as Lieutenant Russell. So apparently at some point she gets promoted and goes to Voyager, even though I don't know that she's ever had lines or anything.
So you're saying she didn't earn her promotion?
I'm saying it was just an extra. But that's interesting. They used the same actress for a few episodes of Voyager and gave her a promotion.
Apparently this is what Shauna O'Brien is known for.
Yeah, she does. This and all of the,
Yeah. Well, right, yeah.
Nick Dimitri, who was one of he's just credited as Romulan Guard. He has 150 IMDb credits, best known for Turner and Hooch, Total Recall, The Fugitives. Looks like 114 acting credits, but he's also a stunt performer.
Okay.
Has 100 stunt credits as well. And will credited in 3 more episodes of Next Gen going forward as different characters and a couple episodes of DS9 same.
Right after this scene, they meet up there at the table and go for the walk. Somehow in those the Romulan outfits and that overly rustic setting or the old time setting, it reminded me of like an old Patrick Stewart role, like they were monks in a monastery or something, or like an I Claudius or something like that, walking and plotting.
I Claudius. That's a great one.
Yeah, and actually rustic. I actually use that word too, so we're a match.
Yes.
The Romulans already dressed like they could be an I Claudius.
Why are the Vulcan, and we talked about this, I think, off mic, or maybe we talked about it last week, the Vulcans, Romulans, and Klingons, maybe not the Klingons as much, but a little bit, at least in the older series, why are they so rustic? They're obviously technologically advanced, just like the Earthlings are our side of the Federation, but then, and whether it's for expedience, for sets, or whatever, why is everything just like, it's BC to use our term. Yeah. It's ancient and all that stuff. It's like, why wouldn't it look like Coruscant, to use the Star Wars reference?
It would.
Yeah. So, because I thought the matte painting of Romulus was like, very futuristic. Then the interiors are like, no, it's still just stone and whatever.
They had a budget.
Yeah.
I mean, story-wise, do you think they could justify it being like, they have old history like Europe or something, or...
Well, Romulus originally, or the Balance of Terror, because I haven't referenced that in a couple weeks, and Mark Leonard was here, it was very much that you had the Praetor and all the kind of Rome things, and I think we talked about...
we'll see more with
Twilight of the Gods and that kind of
forward,
stuff. Yeah. So.
Or maybe they're colonies of some sort. Because when we see human colonies, they're usually kind of...
That's true, yeah.
I do wonder why all of the Vulcans and Romulans, for the most part, have the same barber. I mean, we occasionally will see a Romulan or Vulcan female that has a different hairstyle, although a lot of females have the same hairstyle too. But all
Joanne
the males,
Linville and everyone else. End of discussion.
Spock's betrothed. She had a different hair.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, T'Pring. Yep.
T'Pring. Yeah, so we occasionally will see a female with a different hairstyle, but a lot of the females, like Sela and the Soup Woman, have the same hairstyle too. It just, why do they all have the same hairstyle? I don't get it.
The modified Mo look, if you will.
Yeah, like, I guess you could argue for Vulcans, like, it's logical not to care about your hair or waste time on it, but why do the Romulans all have it?
They were descended from the same place.
That's right. You know, when you're in a hot desert area, you want to have that short. Easy to
that was the only fashion. I had that in the bar, of course. There were so many costumes in the bar.
There's also the racial implications of them all having the same hair type, which would lend itself to only certain kinds of styles. So,
I try for hours to curl it, and it does nothing. This is all I can get. Yeah. Somewhere there's a planet out there where everyone has curly hair.
So Spock went and met with Proconsul Neril, played by Norman Large. He was in the last episode, but we didn't mention him. No. He's best known for Titan AE, Pretty Woman, Evan L. Mighty, and this role in Star Trek The Next Generation. He will play 3 different characters on DS9, including 2 as Romulan criminal uncredited. He'll play another role on Next Gen as a different character, and he'll play 2 roles in Voyager as 2 different characters. So he's going to be around Trek a while, but nothing...
Working actor.
Yeah, he was in a couple episodes of Veronica Mars, Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. No, and he was in Seinfeld.
Oh.
In The Friars Club. He was the detective.
Okay.
There was something about him I really liked. I don't know, just he had this kind of...
Charisma.
Charisma. It's every now and then you see certain actors who have that kind of thing. They do differently with their face, like the bottom half moves in a certain way. They can kind of get that kind of so much out of the mouth. But what I found funny was that he's so obviously delivering like a villain in this episode, or the first one and in this sort of. But I guess I was confused and I was buying it. I was like...
I had the exact same reaction. I was like, clearly he's putting a show on, but I didn't know that was the show he was putting on.
Yeah, I just wrote down too good to be true. He's too enthusiastic.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe I got this guy all wrong. Maybe that's what the whole thing was before. They made me think that it's like, oh, we know Picard's here. Let's go get him and round him up for the resistance and everything. And now And just seconds later, CeeLo's like, oh, they got me.
I was like, oh, yeah, of course.
Well, and that's where Spock started that's where I started going like, okay, this is regular Spock. Because I think it was soon after that where he's like, well, here's the logical thing. Here's the logical thing. Because early on, he was acting more of this human side. Mm-hmm. And then later, he's like, no, this is a logical thing. This is a logical thing. This is a logical thing. He's like, when people are like, oh, what makes you think that? It's logical. That's what makes me think that. Oh, you're right. That is logical.
But number one thing to know about Romulans is they're sneaky. You can't trust anything they say. So, you know.
Can we say that?
That's right.
Yes. They're the spy people. Everything's a spy. They established, I was reading one of the novels and they were talking about how you never use a front door at a Romulan house. You have to find the hidden back entrance because that's the way it is.
Can we say that on this podcast?
Yes. They all have green skin. Slightly green tinted skin.
And the worst are the Romulan children and the Romulan berry. Just...
I don't know why I'm yawning so much.
Because it's logical.
They say somebody says that Spock's the first real Vulcan. I think it's one of the Romulans, maybe.
But he's only half Vulcan.
To visit. That's what I wrote down. I'm like, hold up here. Half Vulcan. So, still on the search for that first real Vulcan.
Spock is more real Vulcan than most real Vulcans. Most full Vulcans. Yes. Spock talks about how he'll miss the arguments with his father. That was all they had in the end. And that was just... Again, I think their relationship is so well developed and so well played. I know Sarek only had, the one episode of the original because that Romulan was not him as a spy. We don't think. And then he had the 2 episodes of Next Gen, but he had the films as well. And I don't know, Nimoy and Leonard are both just such good acters. They really established that.
Yesteryear in the animated series.
True.
The whole half Vulcan thing, it made me think about that. That's something that remained fairly unprogressive, I would say, about the series going forward. Just throughout. I know that's one of the serialization things they had to do. To, as Stephen pointed out, in case you forgot, they had to have to keep hammering that point. But they make it seem so clean and like the idea of there like a literal division. Like
right.
he is exactly half Vulcan, exactly half human, so we can only do this, and this doesn't. The idea of referring to him as though he doesn't count as either. Right. And it's like you can't. Yeah. Well, you're not human because you're that whole thing, and just. Yeah, that obviously ties into a lot of things that happen to people in real life, probably.
Sure. You could draw racial parallels for sure.
Yeah.
If you're even half black, you're definitely black, but
right.
you may be
I think
criticized for being light-skinned.
The original series said essentially the idea he's part of both worlds but part of neither. Kind of.
I feel like the humans would have accepted it more, but he had the unfortunate happenstance of growing up on Vulcan.
Yeah.
But that also relates to something else we were talking about. I thought about that too. I was relating to the idea of switching back and forth between suddenly you're emotional and then bam, it's back to it's falling back on logic, and it makes sense situationally. There are certain times when you probably just back off a step and start thinking it through. And
well, it's well established that Vulcans have emotions; they just don't want to display them.
Right. Well, I mean the idea of his human side.
Yeah.
Because I made the argument in the episode titled Sarek that. Every time we see Sarek, that's all he does is display emotion. That's all he does.
It's true. No, I think with Spock, what he struggled with is he didn't want to accept the emotion. That he didn't understand that, like, bravery is not the absence of fear. Yeah. It's just getting over the fear. Logic, the Vulcan way, is not the absence of emotion. It's just dealing with it. Yeah. And I think in his older age, even as we see in the films, once he learns to accept himself and who he is, he's more comfortable displaying a little emotion from time to time. Yeah. And like in this episode, where he talks about embracing looking beyond logic, that he's not so narrow-minded that he can only look at the logical perspective.
He's almost overcompensating his Vulcan...
In the early days, and I think he really comes out of that and finds a peaceful balance.
Yes, I agree.
It seems like a more settled Spock. Yeah. Especially when we see him in Star Trek Discovery before he's found the balance at all, we see a lot of that turmoil.
Which you have not seen yet.
Not yet.
That's season 2 of Discovery. Okay. Ethan Peck, wonderful Spock.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, much better than Zachary Quinto. Fight me. Send all your letters to Keith at IABDpresents.com. Spock says Picard's almost Vulcan, which I thought was a fun thing because Picard does kind of take on Spock's role in the Next Gen. Yeah. Whereas Riker's the Kirk and Data's the anti-Spock, which I didn't really get until they start talking about it. I thought
that was a great... that was a really good conversation. It was essentially the grass is greener conversation.
Yeah. And I love that Spock calls Data fascinating because he has to use his catchphrase. Yeah. He uses it a couple times.
Yeah, and it almost goes back to my hair thing because I've said this before, is my first wife, she would spend an hour every day trying to get her straightened hair curled just a little bit. The next woman I dated after that marriage would spend an hour every day straightening her already naturally curly hair. Yeah. And it's like... you guys look great. Anyway, I didn't sell it to them at the same time, though.
I think people that spend a lot of effort on their appearance, it tends to be more for themselves than for anybody else. Because they're the ones that care.
You're right.
But it's also, it feels like you're doing something, a variety, having to change something.
That's true, too.
So my note about that was I just loved that this is, to me, is the right kind of fan service. When you have characters talking about the things that they know that the fans were probably talking about. These are kinds of conversations we've had before, and trying to compare like the difference between like a Vulcan and an android in this sense, or what Data's doing, and just...
And the fact that it's a revelation to each, to an extent, like, as smart as these two individuals are, it never dawned on them.
I really felt like it could have been done more subtly. I thought it was a little on the head.
I think and again, this is only a two-parter, but a little more. They could have spent some of the time they did last episode on the sleeping. This is an area where they could have expanded. I agree.
Oh, I don't even know you need to expand. You just don't say it so blatantly. Yeah. You can give the hints, and people will put the connections together themselves.
Well, it's on the nose because Data's nose isn't removable. So,
well, we can blame this, I guess, on the writer. I mentioned last week that part 1 was story by Rick Berman and Michael Piller, and so is part 2. Yeah. But Jerry Taylor penned part 1. Michael Piller himself penned part 2. So, of course, he kept the Spock episode for himself, so he could write for Nimoy. And that's his prerogative as showrunner.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Sure. So you think that was like a gratification move or something like.
I think that was I'm the showrunner. Spock's on the show. I get to write that episode, and I don't blame him one bit. I would have said the same thing. We go back to the bar. We get a second scene of the awesome piano player, which I was not expecting. I really thought it was one and done. And then this time, not only do we get her singing a Klingon opera duet with Worf.
Yes.
Can she get any more awesome?
It's just again the environment is amazing because they were not skimping on alien music. They were just throwing. That's right. Here's like 3 or 4 new tunes, just like right out there. Because
here's some Endorian blues.
Yeah, they always just before this they would always sort of imply that there was this depth of culture out there. And but here's this public domain song from the United States that we just happen to worship for some reason or still have around.
I thought the Klingon opera reminded me, because the way she reacted was like, God, there's always somebody who wants Klingon opera.
She's like, oh, I'm rusty.
It was like at karaoke when someone's like, I want to do Paradise by the Dashboard Light, the Meatloaf song, 7 minutes long. I thought, to me, it was the same reaction. I don't know if that happens as much as karaoke these days, but
it happens more than you would. Yeah, that actually came up the other time.
I know what I'm karaoke next time.
So right. So it's still a thing. But
it's a long discussion.
My friend Richie would, every time we did karaoke, there would be that point in the night where he was drunk enough. He's like, I gotta sing it. And he would have to drag somebody else up there with him.
Oh,
I never sang it with him. So he would.
Not American Pie by Don McLean?
No, it was always that was the 7-minute song he was going to torture everyone. I once tortured a crowd with Every Picture Tells a Story by Rod Stewart, which is like 6 minutes long.
I don't think I know it.
It was that was a lot of fun.
I mean, if it's something that isn't that common and overdone,
well,
then,
and it was a night where like nobody was doing the karaoke, so I'm like, screw it, I'm going to go up and do it again. And then finally, people started doing more. It was
early because they didn't want you doing another 7 minutes.
Exactly. I was like, all right, people, you're getting this.
Sela says she respects Data, which I guess is our service for callback to her last appearance.
Oh, right.
Again, I really wish she had a few more appearances to flesh that out better, but Pardok betrayed them. I didn't see that coming, and I didn't fully buy it even after it was exposed.
That's right.
I felt like he inadvertently betrayed them by bringing in Neril and trusting him when he shouldn't have, rather than blatantly betrayed. And the further stories I've read of Pardok in novels seem to imply that it may not have been on purpose. That it was more inadvertent. I read a Star Trek Titan novel recently that with Captain Riker, his ship, and it was the end of Pardok's life, and we got more of his story. So
because doesn't Spock say I've known you 80 years? That's a long play. That's the long game.
See, that's why
I don't screw it up at the end. That doesn't make sense.
They didn't make it clear, but I'm pretty sure all they meant was he just trusted the wrong person. I don't think they meant like he was trying to lay a trap.
That's interesting. The idea that maybe he didn't actually do it because he had a really strange reaction to the whole thing. It wasn't like it was just this weak kind of like, well, maybe I guess you got me. Not even really quite like, yep, all right, I'm sorry. I had to do it because it was sort of like, and maybe I hadn't thought maybe Spock was giving him an out. Maybe he was doing this whole thing like, you're the one who betrayed me. Blah, 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 blah. And he's like,
could be.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you got me. Well, I guess I'll take the credit and move on out of here. And
that could be. I didn't think about that.
You're right. I did betray him. I betrayed him. Take me out of here.
Yeah. Sela says, I wrote this speech. It's something I enjoy. And then Data's lied about it. Maybe you'd be happier in a better job.
That whole sequence was hysterical.
Well, and then she tells Spock that he can change any words he wants to in the speech. At that point, the speech that ended up airing was, these are bad guys, stop them.
Right.
I wanted him to just be like, okay, give me the speech. These are bad guys, stop them. Because she said he could change any words he wants.
Well, doesn't he say, I will not read this?
Yeah.
Right after she says, I do love writing. Here you go. I am not reading this. Oh my God. And then, And then they threaten him with the hologram technology, truly evil.
Deepfake.
Yeah.
Which way ahead of its time, because now that's a thing.
I was going to say, during that time, or I don't know if this is pre that, maybe it's pre that whole thing where it's like, well, pretty soon they're going to be able to put Humphrey Bogart in movies and actors will be obsolete. It's like, well, kind of, except their agents and their attorneys will make sure they get compensated. But yeah.
Till the copyright expires or whatever, and people are long.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Sela talks about hating Vulcans, hating logic, hating their arrogance, blah blah blah.
That made me laugh too.
Yeah. It was all so fun the way it was done. And just
She was so cartoon villain. Like even the fact where she lays out her whole evil plan in front of them, and you're just like, why? You're smarter than that. You don't tell them what your plan is. They wouldn't have been able to stop her if she hadn't laid it out. It was very James Bond.
Yeah, it maybe unintentionally made me laugh, but yeah, just the way she said, I hate Vulcans. I hate Vulcans.
every time they mention
Who are these people?
every time they bring up, why do they need a Vulcan ship? Why do they need a Vulcan? I just keep thinking, what does God need with a Vulcan ship?
Yeah. Riker ignores Picard's orders to stay put, to go intercept, and I'm like, yeah, he knows them well enough at this point. Riker's a good captain. Every time we see him acting as captain, it's like, yeah, why hasn't he taken his own ship yet? I know what his reasons were initially, but now I feel like, now you can go ahead and take it.
Yeah.
You've earned it.
Pretty good.
My final note was actually...
You think she demonstrates the value of staying?
Yes, I think we've talked about it before in some previous episodes where it's like, Picard has to go off and do this other thing. You need like a captain-level captain to be on the Enterprise.
Yeah. Sure, but anybody that's captain level would probably want to be a captain.
Well, yeah, but
I see the benefit to Picard. I don't see the benefit to Riker as much.
The benefit of Riker is he is being a captain on the Enterprise still.
More lots of
and the Enterprise is the ship. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, well. But isn't it better to reign in hell than be first officer in heaven?
Yeah, that's... I was going there...
To paraphrase Khan.
Or to a sports analogy where in the NFL they say if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. That used to be the theory was like, well, if you have two and you don't have one who's clearly better than the other, then you... But then the Eagles won the Super Bowl with essentially a similar thing. Actually, they had one guy who was better, but the other guy was still pretty good. So you still want to have two good guys.
What does that even mean?
I'm actually giving I'm giving credence to both your guys' theories.
No, I don't understand why that would be... What are they... Like leadership or something? Or
So if you have two and you can't decide who's better, then it's like, well, crap. I don't know who to pick.
Oh, okay, I guess.
Where it gets you in trouble, actually, this goes to your point. If they're both really good, then you're good.
Yeah.
If they're both not so good, that's where you're in trouble. At least have one guy, not so good guy they can get used to rather than, I think that's more on point. So why did they leave Sela there? Why didn't they take her with them?
Yeah, I wondered that too. Because she could just call for help. Well, they nerve pinched her, so she'd be out for a while.
Well, the reason that's her...
You think they should have kidnapped her?
Yeah. Because otherwise it's definitely well, we're done with her. I'll get you next time. Twisting her mustache.
Except that was her last appearance because Data actually pinched too hard. And
it was the Vulcan death grip. No, she's in both still. The trick... So I had a couple questions about the technology. One, of course, was how did they just beam down from the Klingon ship while they were still cloaked and didn't get caught? Up and down several times.
Oh, right.
But then the second thing was the hologram. Like, they had a hologram of the whole room, and they were just behind it.
Yeah.
Room within the room. Although, I noticed Riker's hair right away. And so I kind of, again...
That was hilarious.
I like that they called it out, like, oh, you didn't get his hair quite right.
Nice.
I'm sure that was the clue to us that something was up.
And I think maybe that points to, again, why spoiler, I think I like Unification I better than Unification I, even though we had all the Spock in and everything.
There was hardly any Spock in part one.
I know.
But we had Sarek.
Yeah. So, and maybe it's not a clear, bright line, but I think I still like the setup better than the ending.
So it continues the trend of part ones are better than part two.
But what I liked about both is the sense of humor, and I think when you've got everything else going on, all the other elements, it's easier to...
that trend's been happening since Wrath of Khan Search for Spock.
That's true. That's true.
So 4 of my 5 remaining notes are about that room.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So I got the holographic Spock when he's doing the speech to demonstrate, look what he can do. I noticed that maybe it's an unintentional reference to or from Lower Decks because he pronounced it sensors. Huh. And I guess this will probably stay within the rating, I hope. I don't know. But there's that centerpiece on one of the tables. They paused it for a moment. It looked like a sex toy.
Probably was.
The thing with all the...
It probably was.
Like the stalactite way back in What Are Good Little Girls Made Of.
There's probably so many sex toys we're missing in this.
Yeah.
You gotta find any props. Yeah, any prop, you just take an item and modify it, and there's so many sex toys that look like alien objects anyway.
Right.
You think they literally did do that at some point?
Yes. Many times.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely. I would be super surprised and disappointed if they didn't. I mean, nowadays, there's got to be some bad dragons that show up in Discovery, right?
Yeah.
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 When they're doing the gotcha out of the hologram and nerve pinch, and instead Picard just does a human face punch.
That was very Kirk.
Yeah, it was.
Very Kirk.
It was an actual fist and a punch, and knocked him out with one blow.
It wasn't the two-handed...
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I'm sorry about that whole thing also is that there was no moment where it's like, all right, here's our plan.
That happened behind the holographic.
Yeah.
Data mastered the nerve pinch. Kirk never did manage.
No, except there might have been a death grip. No, all right, you said she's still alive.
In novels, not in canon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, actually, right before before Data did that, I thought he was about to walk up to her and say, "Jelantru," and one more thing, Jelantru, out.
That would have been funny too. They destroyed the Romulans when they were caught. They just blew up their transport ships. Cold.
Awesome.
Not surprising, but cold.
Yeah.
I liked the Spock Picard goodbye. The talk about useful arguments and then he touches Sarek through Picard and Spock's face when he does that.
Yeah, that was...
Nimoy's acting is top notch.
I can't believe that in the middle of two really good episodes, I'm referencing Requiem from Methuselah twice, but I am going to... And Keith mentioned it immediately. It's very similar to The Forget, and it comes at the very end, and if this was an episode that it was as uneven as Requiem, I'd be like, oh, that kind of saves it, almost. But in this instance, it's like, man, that's just a perfect, and they don't linger on it too long. Like, it was perfect. It was,
that was the way to go out.
It was.
Because you pay tribute to Sarek. Yeah. Mark Leonard wouldn't die till years later.
Yeah.
But you pay tribute to this great character, and it's such an important part of Spock.
It was great. Yeah.
Yeah, he just refused to die, even though they tried to kill him in the episode. They're like, it's time for you to go. Sorry.
I only have two more notes. This is going back on a couple of these, but I think it's in the bar. It might be Riker says, I don't carry money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Told you Federation doesn't carry money. Starfleet doesn't carry money.
My wife's 300 years ahead of the times because whenever we're anywhere and they need cash, she's like, well, I don't carry cash. I'm like, oh, you got me again. You got me again.
I don't either.
I usually don't. Well, lately I haven't, but I am now.
Lately I started putting some in my wallet just because we've run into a couple of instances. Like some kids came to buy candy bars at the door. And because my final note is she calls him the Great Spock, which made me laugh. And I don't know if you remember this sketch, Keith, where it was when Bill Murray went back to host SNL, and he played Hercules, but Hercules after he got in a belly, gotten old and fat.
Kind of, yeah.
And the guy keeps calling him the Great Hercules, and he's like, stop calling me that. And it was a voiceover as Hercules, but Bill Murray with a gut. Or whatever. Nice. So that's all I could think of when she called him the Great Spock, especially the way she said it, the Great Spock. So indignant. I love the fat Ferengi, because we can call him that. Mm-hmm. Love Sela. Usually I don't like the cornball villains, but I especially did these.
They were both really funny in this, especially, I mean, it seemed like unusually so.
It made them, in a weird way, as cartoony as they were, it made them seem more real to me.
My last one was another fan service note where the kid comes up and essentially gives them like dungeon dice or something.
Oh, yeah.
Here's my four-sided die.
It's how Spock learned to read, or Vulcans learned to... Yeah. But Vulcans have to do everything fancy, so they're not square.
Yeah. They think they're better than us.
Directed by one of our regulars, Chris Bull. Yeah, it's their arrogance and logic.
In words that are too big. I just... God, the way she just like...
That was so funny. That was just all just great.
Any other notes?
I don't have... I have no more notes.
Alternate episode?
Mine is, and it's something you said while we were watching it, Jimmy. I love this bar, and it just made me think of Toby Keith, but... which was the opposite of the episode I want to see. I just want to see that bar. I just want, It's not Cheers, but it's still a sitcom set at that bar, and with some drama maybe.
You could easily do a good, especially modern style storytelling episode with just that bar and having main characters kind of slide through to advance the story. It's like you get a glimpse of the story that's happening from their perspective.
Yeah, and it was a bar that had aliens in it that wasn't the cantina in Star Wars or in the prequels and the sequels that were like, we're going to try and revisit that with a bunch of aliens, but anything I saw in all those was like, you're trying to be different, but you're still kind of the same, and you're not. It's like having two quarterbacks, but you had none. That's where they ended up with those. This I thought was a bar. I was like, okay, this looks like a bar. This looks like a bar I would want to go to on Earth that has a bunch of aliens. It's a bar with a bunch of interesting people, which is what you want out of your bar.
Absolutely.
As long as you can get in. Lots of those interesting bars with interesting people, I can't get in. I'm not on the list.
Alternate episode of Sela's writer room or something.
Yeah.
God,
It does. I was just thinking.
She writes a bunch of self-published
Can you punch
stories
this
about
up?
where she destroys the Enterprise. This week, she seduces Riker and destroys the Enterprise. Next week, she outsmarts Picard and destroys the Enterprise.
But just it looked
I
like
want to rip on these guys when they get here.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got? Well, the one guy's a Vulcan, and the other guy's Picard. He's kind of a weird, standoffish kind of guy. And I just want to stick it to him that I can't wait for them to read this. All right, here's what we got. Yeah.
that isn't even what I was thinking. That would be amazing. Just it felt very much like she had something ready to go with these people. But just even just her working on the speech with people and think, does this sound stuffy enough? And it would be just the way that they just keep ripping on Vulcans the entire time. Like, no, you have to do this to.
Oh, Vulcans! I got pages of material on Vulcans. Of course, none of those you can read now. Back then you could.
She'd be great at a roast.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Who was your annoyance?
As much as she was my favorite, she was also my annoyance, Sela.
I have to say Sela too, not because I hated her, but because how cartoony villain can you get by giving away your whole evil scheme?
Those are good points. Maybe the kid? I don't know.
Datan or Datan?
Datan. The Dice kid.
Yeah.
Was he part of the? I can't remember if they were implying that he was part of the trap. Was he or
No, he was part of the Resistance.
So he really was that
Yeah.
enthusiastic. Well,
Yep.
nah, right, somebody else then. Let me think. There's got to be something.
If you say the piano woman, I'm stabbing you in the throat with this pen. No, I'm kidding.
Maybe her ex-husband. That was a great advancement of the conversation there.
Yeah,
Just the whole-
it was.
Yeah, I'll go with her ex-husband on the ship.
Piano player's ex-husband that we didn't even see.
Yeah.
He was annoying because how dare he leave her? Who are you going to have a drink with?
I know we changed it to drink several episodes back, but I'm going to go completely baseless, or base, if you will, and it's the escort. Shauna O'Brien, that's who I'm going to have a drink with.
She was the one wearing black, right?
Yeah.
So not like the fish-headed woman or whatever.
I would
like
tip the
Invidious.
piano player heavily.
No. I mean, he was with two escorts.
Yeah,
One with,
it's the first one.
I'm going with who do I want to hang out with and drink with, and it's
Yeah.
the piano player, obviously.
Yeah, she's
obviously.
Yeah.
Anne-Marie or whatever. Anne-Marie. Obviously.
I feel like I'd at least like to be at the napkin Ferengi's table. I don't know. I don't.
So you want to have a drink with the fat Ferengi?
The whole table.
I mean, he brings the escorts with him. So.
That's true.
It would just.
He brings the party.
I feel like it would be too much after probably very, very quickly, but at least be curious for a bit.
Ranking the episode. Better or worse than part one? Steven already said worse.
Yeah.
Keith?
I think I liked it better. There was something. Well, I mean, they were both, surprisingly funny.
Yeah, I enjoyed both, but for sure. And I'm surprised that I didn't enjoy the Spock one as much as the first one.
I think the first one edges it out for me because as much as I love the Sarek scenes, Spock had some great. As much as I love the Spock emotional moment scenes, I really like the Sarek scene and all the Stephen Root as the Klingon captain, which we really didn't get much in episode 2. Instead, we got lesser. Yeah. But the piano player in part 2, it's close. Yeah. But I'm going to go just slightly below. So we'll overrule Keith. Keith would put it first of the season. Do we want to go lower than Redemption 2, or we want to keep it right underneath Unification 1?
I think they're 1 and 2, yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
It seems chalk, for lack of a better term, chalk meaning that's another sports term where everything falls in line where it should. Yeah. It seems chalk to be like, well, it's the 2 Spock episodes. Yeah. Even though we're on season 5 of TNG, but
next week, A Matter of Time. I'm going to change the description slightly because I feel like the description spoils.
Giveaway.
We're reaching Panthara 4 after an asteroid wreaks havoc of catastrophic proportions. The Enterprise, I'm not going to spoil.
It's already finished.
The Enterprise crew deals with trying to save the planet as well as a historian from the future. Until then, live long.
Call your dad.
And this is the conclusion.
And prosper. Aye.
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?